let me give you a pull. 2013 Scion FR-S. I actually owned one of these, the exact same model year. Mine was in white, and I had it for more than 9 years, believe it or not. After that, I replaced it with a GR86, and I had that for about 2 years, and then I replaced that with my current Lotus Emira. So I have a soft spot for the ZN6 chassis and the ZC6 with the Subaru, and I actually favor this first gen more in certain ways compared to the second gen, the ZN8 and the ZD8 for the GR86 and the BRZ respectively. And although I did lightly mod mine, I wasn't able to take mine to this level. I was just a broke med student at the time, and all I ever did was headers, tune, and some wheels and tires. But the owner, Bartek here, has done a lot more than that. Actually, he bought this from Terrence. Terrence was the original owner who has quite a reputation of building really well set up track vehicles. And Bartek then bought the car from him for about $24,000 a couple years ago, and he's made a few changes since. We're powered by, of course, the FA20. That is a flat four that is normally naturally aspirated, 2.0 liters, making 200 horsepower, 151 pound-feet of torque, usually about 160 to the wheel stock. But this one has the TRD HKS GT V3 Supercharger kit, which gives you 250 wheel horsepower on 91 octane. So about a 90 horsepower bump over stock. Normally the car weighs in around 2,750 pounds with a 53 to 47 front to rear weight distribution. However, as you can see here, this is no stock FRS. So although the half cage does add a little bit of weight and it does help with the rigidity, we've obviously lost a lot more weight with all the carbon fiber bits, as well as stripping out the interior. So I'd guess we're in the 2600 range, but Bartek is actually going to be quarter balancing this in a couple days, and we'll put the exact weight on screen right now. We also have Racecomp Tarmac 2 coilovers, 9K front and 9K rear. The 4.3 final drive ratio from the 2018 model year. So in 2018, they actually updated the car with a shorter final drive. So he's adopted that here. He used to have the Tomei Trax 2-way LSD, which he's now replaced with the OS Giken 1.5-way Superlock LSD built by Wanganstyle. And he's mentioned that this has actually made him a little bit faster around the track. And one thing on the styling front, I thought that these looked pretty good for their age and their price. The one thing that always bothered me were the headlights on the stock FRS. So the GT86 overseas had some DRLs right here, which looked a lot better. And I always felt like these headlights just cheapened the car, but I could never get myself to replace them because it felt like such a waste of money to, you know, drop $1,500 when I had student loans and stuff, just to change the appearance of the car. And I love this little touch right here, this 8.6 badge, the Boxer engine, super cool. I really have a soft spot for these cars. The interior has always got a bad rap ever since the beginning, but I never thought it was that bad because it's just purpose built. They had this weird pattern that's like kind of fake carbon fiber, but not. It's actually a T shape for Toyota, and you see it over there too. Like this thing, it's very functional, simple, gets the job done, and I felt like it got a lot of unfair hate. Keep in mind the seat here, we are fixed forward with this bucket. I'm not able to slide back, and as you can see, my knee is at 90 degrees, so we're not going to get too crazy in terms of heel toe and pushing the car. And he mentioned the traction is going to try to kill you, so if that doesn't turn on, you have to hold this for 5 seconds to disable it, because again, the traction control was designed for a stock example. There we go. And we've changed too many things that it is no longer helpful. It is now more dangerous. Oh, that's a lot more power than my FRS ever had. Wow. So this HKS supercharger, I'm pretty sure is a centrifugal unit, and that's going to give you a little bit more top end, which is ideal for being on track. Whereas you may want a positive displacement if you want something that's a little bit more streetable, dual duty, or mid-range. But listening to that zoomy rumble, It sounds like we have unequal length headers. Now in my car, I actually went with equal length headers. You don't get the soupy rumble when you do that, but it helps you have a little bit more top end. And I wanted that because mine was naturally aspirated, not supercharged. And I did track mine as well. Oh wow, the rear end lively. The nice thing about these cars though is that they are so much more progressive and controllable. They are so beginner friendly. Straight from factory pro, do not cross the double yellow. And they're such a good learning tool as a result. I autocrossed mine, I did my first ever track days in mine. By the way, I can hear my voice echo in the car because we have no sound editing, just bouncing around all this sheet metal. Wow, this LSD though is really making the car eager to rotate. Steering here is also one of my favorite parts about the car because the second gen, they had this weird, they said they improved it, they really didn't. It got worse in the second gen. The engine got better. Well, let me give you a pull. It's always been somewhat of a rough engine. Even as you push it to redline, it feels like the engine is unhappy with you. But this one, with the mods the owner has done, sound a lot better than mine ever did. Now the steering here is still E-Pass, just like in the second generation A6 and VRC. But they didn't do whatever funky recalibration. In fact, the first gen has substantially heavier steering than the second gen. Over here, it's actually not as heavy as I was expecting. Not sure what the alignment settings are with regards to caster. That can definitely influence it. But we have nice mid-quarter weighting here that is dynamic, which I absolutely love. It tells you a lot more about what is happening in the front tires. Coilovers here, I mean, as you guys can obviously tell, this is a bit stiff for this road, but I'm sure on track this would feel great. This more, you know, mid-range option is also, oh, there we go. The rear end constantly wanting to come out, but it's very progressive. That's one of the hallmarks of these cars. They're so easy to get sideways and just dance with. If you get in something like a Miata that has a much shorter wheelbase, it's actually less approachable. And even the S2000, which is longer wheelbase than the Miata, those tend to be a little bit less forgiving as you push them to the edge. These are far more progressive, beautiful learner's tools. But going back to the suspension, the damping quality is decent. These obviously aren't top-shelf coilovers, but for what this car is and for its intended use case, I think a good compromise, a good balance. Brakes are feeling nice and solid. All the inputs here are very one-to-one and natural. In fact, what made me fall in love even more all over again with the ZN6 was driving a GR-MN86. That was the very rare Japan-only maxed out version of this car that ever came from factory, and that was, oh my god, glorious. The inputs, the engine even, they actually adjusted there. Tighter tolerances, smoother, and with 15 more horsepower, or rather 16, but stock from factory. This is obviously a very different flavor. This is far more track focused and far more playful actually as well, because again, this 1.5 way LSD is really wanting to get the rear sideways. But once it does step out, the overall chassis GRM NA6 or even from my own FR-S, but beautiful mid-corner load up. The pedal box here also, again, I'm not sitting in an optimal position because I'm too close, but I still was able to do a few heel toes there without issue. And they have great calibration, like the clutch throw isn't too long. The brakes have this nice solidity and this great modulation to them. The throttle isn't too much of an on-off switch. And even the transmission, like, it doesn't feel expensive. It feels like the ND Miata feels slick and expensive and heavier, right? This has a lighter feel to it, but it's very easy to use. You're not misshifting this. It's nice and notchy. You can get one of these FRSs for like 10 to 15 grand. I remember I sold mine a couple years ago for like 10 or 11 grand with 70 to 80,000 miles on it. And they're just a stupid good deal. These cars aren't as common at track days anymore as they used to be. I'm seeing more of the second gen now, and the second gen, as you guys know, the right-handers, you gotta be careful with those. And while this car is definitely down on power in its stock form versus the second gen, I think that the first gen has this rawness, this connectedness, especially in the steering, but even just in the way that the car overall feels, that I think the second gen kind of misses. Now here we have a big power bump over stock. This is more powerful than even the second gen, and it feels nice and balanced now, because with the first gen, one of the biggest issues was it was underpowered, right? You're making 160 horsepower on a car that weighs more than 2,700 pounds. That power to weight ratio is not ideal, whereas here you now have less than 10 pounds per horsepower, and this car feels very balanced. It feels very adequate. Now keep in mind, this took a lot of money in mods to get the car to this point, but I think even if you don't have that level of budget, you start with the car 10 to 15K, you can then grow with it. You can start adding small mods here and there, like I was doing, adding, you know, the headers and the tune, the wheels and tires, the exhaust, etc. You can grow and adapt and learn with the car, and it's such a beautiful learner's tool. I absolutely adore these cars. I think they are underrated, they're great value, and even the torque dip, which happens around, let's say 35 to 5K, it's not that big of a deal, because when you're riding around town, you're keeping the revs mostly below the torque dip, between 25 to 3,500, and when you're pushing it on track, you're then above the torque dip. It's just that the engine isn't the smoothest, it's not the best sounding, but again, I think that while the engine was the weakness straight from factory, everything else was just so strong, including the steering, the inputs, the driver position, the overall chassis communication and balance, and just how easy it is to learn with this car and push the limits. But my friends, let me know what you think with a comment down below. Big shout out to the owner Bartek for letting me review his car. If you want your car reviewed, visit us on JabalAndCars.com. Fill out the form on the homepage. Much love, my friends, and I'll see you all in that next one.